Kirky, YokiJimo, Freudian Duck.
Hey everyone, and welcome to part 2 of the Secret Bosses podcast and what gaming means to us. I am TheKirkyLife, but you can call me James, Jim, Jim Bob, or Kirky. I genuinely don't mind which you choose yourselves, you little naughty people, but I've got very important people with me today. First of all, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Zakk.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
And also with us today, we've got the Duck himself.
Oh,
Yes.
he called me important.
I did. You're a very important little duckling.
Yay.
It's Mr. Damian.
Yes, indeed.
So, gaming and what it means to us. It is a big discussion, isn't it? And if you haven't watched the previous podcast, then please do watch it. It's all very interesting. And really, we just want you to get to know us, and we want us to get to know you kind of as well. It's all sort of like a melting pot of emotions and sharing of memories. And what we're going to start off with,
It's kind of like America, but for emotions.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, yeah, the United States of Emotions. We're going to actually, Secret Bosses was just our provisional name. We're going to be changing to the USE now, or use. Oh wait, use?
Use.
No, no,
Use.
let's go away from that. Let's go away from that right now. Let us start off, actually, with why do we play video games? And Mr. Duckling, I think we shall start with you.
All right, that sounds good. Why I play personally, I play video games just because it's just a good pastime. I feel like it's become more of America's pastime, if anything. Now, like, I mean,
Not Wheel of
some
Fortune?
people watch. Well, maybe the world's pastime, even not just America's. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
I'm being
No,
uncultured.
No, I agree with that in a lot of ways. I mean, I think that personally why I play video games is because I am not good at anything else, and I'm barely good at video games, so I might as well be barely good at something than nothing at all.
Oh, bless you.
I don't. Sorry.
No, actually, it really started. It really started because my brother lived really far away from me when like Xbox Live first started, like back in early 2000.
Yeah.
So we would, he got Halo 2 and I got Halo 2, and then Xbox Live started becoming a really big thing, and we would get on Xbox Live together, and that's the way that we could be together for basically our entire lives up until adulthood. That was the way that we spent time together, was playing Xbox Live.
You guys were like probably like phone chatting, like phone sexing each other over there.
Oh,
yeah.
no. The Xbox
No, we had
was
like
not meant for
we had a
this.
whole group of friends, and yeah, we'd play Halo, and during the summers I'd go down to his house and visit him. But yeah, for the most part, that's how we would spend time together until probably I was about 12 or so. Yeah, that was about how we spent time together.
I wish I was that lucky when originally me playing games was because I was a lonely bastard. And honestly, it just gave me something to do. I didn't want to go outside. I wasn't the most athletic of builds. I'm still not now. I'm a lot better than I was, mind you. But I think gaming has sort of cemented itself as a real backbone throughout my life. And it's just been something which I've grown up with. And though I do it more now, very much like Damian, for as a pastime, but also for YouTubing purposes, of course. I love entertaining people in general. It's always been there throughout my life as something which I can always come back to, and something which I will always know that I can enjoy. It just sort of it's very much a fantasy. You just take yourself away from real life for a bit and let yourself be immersed in FIFA, ironically.
Yeah, but Damian, Damian also does music and edits, and a lot of your music seems to be like influenced by kind of video game. I mean,
It
So,
is.
how do you play games, and then are you inspired to write songs?
Yeah. A lot of the songs I do are actually inspired by I did a song for like a remix of one of the Undertale songs. I did a remix of a Sonic song one time, but I never actually got around to finishing that. But yeah, a lot of my music is inspired by basically MIDI patterns of popular like retro games.
That's really cool, man. That's really cool.
Well, I mean, it's where
Yeah.
the whole 8-bit genre really originated from, wasn't it? I mean, you have so many remixes. I mean, I'm not sure whether you guys have played Undertale. I mean, I certainly haven't, but
Oh, I love Undertale. Yeah.
I've actually most of my experiences with Undertale have been through remixes of the music found in it, and there are so many different variations on which to do it. So, you know, video games has had, I guess, not just such a big influence in individuals' lives, but it's had a real impact on culture as a whole. It's really been hard to avoid. I mean, would you agree with that?
I
of
would.
course.
I would
Yeah.
definitely.
I'll just go back to your thing about all the Undertale remixes. I can like personally say that Damian's is the best. No, but that's cool. So, like, do you play video games like to write music, or is like you doing music and editing and your YouTube thing that you do, is that kind of all just like centered around like something that you just specifically love to do?
It's more or less like if I hear a game song that I like something that's like really catchy, then I'll incorporate it into one of my songs. And I used to do all these. They have on Sound. It's kind of like YouTube poop, but for SoundCloud. They're called Sound Clowns, and basically you would just like you would memify some kind of song.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's.
Yeah.
I used to do a lot of those, which were really funny. Hang on, someone's knocking on my door.
No worries. I should mention,
James, you said something about living vicariously through games, and I
Yeah,
know
yeah.
that you're an avid soccer fan. So, like, how does that fit in with playing like FIFA? And I know that you do like a lot of Rocket League stuff.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
like, how does that like love for video games come to your love of soccer, or as you guys say, football?
well, I think it's really the other way around. I mean, I actually started playing soccer games earlier than I actually got into football, the sport itself. It was just something that was there, and they sort of now really complement each other. And Rocket League, to be fair, wasn't so much out of my love of sport as it was I actually picked up the predecessor, Super Acrobatic Rocket Power Battle Cars. Try saying that with a lisp. I picked it up through PlayStation Plus, and so that was just a love of a love of the idea of the sequel, and eventually just a love of the game in general. But I think in general, actually, I more play those sorts of games now purely for the entertainment purposes. I mean, I do a lot of commentary over sim racing. If you don't know, it's kind of like an in-between of esports and just casual racing on games like Drive Club and so on, except it's on proper simulators, so R Factor 2, Automobilista, if you are aware of any of them. And I have plenty of years of experience in that field of commentating on that stuff, and that's where I was able to transition the easiest into actually my YouTube videos, was I could get the audience pumped up about how I was doing. And I think there's certainly been a bit of a transition in. Sometimes I've gotten a little bit too overexcited for my own good, but it's all part of the learning process, you know?
Yeah, no, but your style actually, like, personally for me, like, loving, you know, soccer teams, like, you know, my favorite team's Tottenham, and like, being able to watch that here from America, it does seem like a lot of your commentary style is taken it's kind of derivative actually from that commentating style of actually watching a soccer game, even when you're not playing a soccer related game.
It's I tell you what, it's really bad of me, but I've had that real commentating mentality for a good few years now, and I will watch stuff like Formula One, I will watch stuff like soccer, and English fans out there, yes, it is stabbing me through the heart every time I say soccer. I do apologise. I'm catering for my friends here. You realise, but yeah, I watch Formula One and I watch soccer, and I nitpick the commentators. I say, oh, why is he saying that? Why is he saying that? And ultimately, it's all just to evolve my own style and me as a person, and try not to make the same mistakes.
Yeah, that's really cool though. It's kind of like all in a culmination of like not only why you guys play video games, but also like why you guys do the things you do in your personal life, and how those things are influenced by your outside life. That's really cool.
I'd love to know more about you though. I mean, myself and Damian have talked lots, but how intricate in your life does video games come? Is it just simply a pastime for you? Do you sort of like get the same joy of entertaining others as I do? Has it been there for a long time?
No, not really. I mean, kind of. I think where like playing video games really came from is when I was a lot younger, and my grandma Marilyn was still alive. She showed me a little movie called Night of the Living Dead, which is one of my favorite films of all time. And she fucking ruined the ending for me, and just laughed
worst.
about it for like 30 minutes. But ever since then, I've always loved like anything horror gaming related, and that's just kind of where like wanting to do a channel based around playing horror video games really came from. It's just that passion of playing or watching horror movies in general. Because
But
it's
yeah,
something I
you're
really
you're
love.
playing Super Mario 64 Chaos Edition. You know.
Well, that's
and-
just scary in its own way.
yeah.
That's horrifying for a completely different reason, Damien.
But I tell you
Oh,
what,
well,
actually,
yeah, maybe.
that does segue actually really nicely into what our first experiences of gaming was. I mean, obviously your grandma introduced you to Nights of the Living Dead, and so that sparked an interest in the horror genre and then gaming in general. But what was the first gaming experience that you can actually remember taking from that interaction?
It would actually be a little game by the name of Clock Tower. If you guys know that game,
Never
It's
actually heard of
Oh,
fucking-
that does sound familiar. I think
It's a completely awful horror game that was released a long time ago, and you just move super slow, and it's based solely around like jump scares. But yeah, that was one of my first really big experiences playing horror video games. That, and obviously Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2 was kind of the first things I can remember playing of video games that were also horror related.
Resident Evil were like those were fucking great back in. Like,
Yeah, absolutely fantastic games, man. I mean, I remember being such a big fan of horror. You know, I would pick out all the shots they would choose, and kind of dissect the dichotomy between good and evil, especially in like Resident Evil, especially like Resident Evil 2, with kind of the dad scientist turning into the big mutant and like all the shit going on around you. You get so many good pieces and elements that are cliche of horror, but still work even here today in 2016. They still work even though they're cliches, and I love that about horror.
yeah,
And actually, I mean, obviously, horror has sort of gone straight through then pre-gaming into gaming, and throughout your gaming life. Then I wonder whether music has actually had, or music was one of the first experiences that you had with gaming, Damian.
music actually wasn't one of the first. Music kind of came as like I became a music producer later on, but honestly my first experience had to be like the first game I ever played.
I think I was about 5 years old. It was a game called Streets of Rage, if you've ever heard of it. It's basically this fighting type game where you can have like 4 people on the screen, and they would just like it was like a side scrolling type deal where I don't know, like that I think that's probably where I got my love of games like Tekken, Mortal Kombat. I'm a huge fan of fighting games. Like I always try to go nuts with learning like the highest amount of combos with every fucking character. And
Yeah, but while you're on the subject of fighting games, I mean, especially like Tekken, I mean, it's kind of
yeah.
renowned. It's kind of renowned for its soundtrack at the time. I mean, it had a great pacing to the songs while you were fighting. So, I mean, maybe there was something there for you, Damon, when you're younger and you just kind of didn't know it. Maybe.
How can we forget Mortal Kombat?
Mortal Kombat, yeah. Oh my god, it's so good.
Wasn't Mortal Kombat the reason why they started putting like ESRB warnings on video
Yes,
games?
it
I
was.
believe
It
so,
was.
yeah.
They were the reason.
That's
And
fucking insane.
They had to, because they couldn't put ESRB ratings yet, they had to make Mortal Kombat, I think it was 2 or 3. They had to make it without any blood
Yeah.
or something like that, or for a certain console, or I don't know exactly how the story goes.
I
But
think you're right. I think they had to make it without blood. Yeah.
The B actually stands for brutality.
yeah.
Yeah, you're right. The B does stand for brutality.
Yeah.
But I do remember, too, that they did use, like, I don't know how it is over there, James, but I know that here we actually used to have a little bit of a different ESRB warning than we do now.
We've
yeah.
always had the PEGI rating, which has gone, especially in recent, it's sort of been like 3+, 7+, 15 or 16+, and then 18.
Look at you guys and your fancy numbers. And we got these like shitty letters, getting letter grades. Yeah, like they removed that. I realized like back when I grew up with the Nintendo 64. That was like my main console growing up.
Yeah, me too.
And they had like some games would be like kids only or something. Like, well, it was like KO written on it or some shit.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. No,
yeah.
the one that I think that you're referring to is like, I know that they had
YO,
like
youth
early
only.
no, they had like early childhood.
Yeah, that's it. Your early
Yeah.
childhood. I had like one or two cartridges that my parents would buy. They had like early childhood. They were like the games I wouldn't play, but it's like something that kind of, I guess now they got E for everyone. And on
Yeah,
the
Yeah.
E for Everyone actually was an original ESRB warning, if I remember correctly. But then, like just like 10 years ago, they added E for Everyone 10 and up.
yeah, that wasn't recent, but that was more like when the PS2 was around.
No, I think that was like 2004, 2005, if I can remember, because they extended it for like more mild violence, and it was kind of the in between everyone and teen. Because I remember watching a whole thing on that there was kind of like they needed this kind of stepping stone in order to get in between everyone and teen, because they didn't have like the TV system where there's like teen 14 and up kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
It sort of had like fantasy violence, but not on the level of, oh, I don't want my 10-year-old to see that. It was all, I guess actually kind of like Ratchet and Clank in a way. Ratchet and Clank has the violence, but it's also quite, you can quite clearly tell what the demographic is there.
Yeah, I think that cartoon violence is still actually represented under like the E or E10 plus as like cartoon violence.
I mean,
is
as
allowed
long
to be
as you're
there.
not like massacring people like in GTA. I mean, I think their limit is like, as long as you're just like destroying robots with a fucking blunt weapon. I mean,
you're destroying robots or you're knocking someone out.
Yeah, there is no like killing or murdering or whatever involved.
The whole knocking out thing was my favorite thing from like Conquer, when you would just kind of knock out a boss, but then they would still say like fucking really mean shit to you.
Especially the Great Mighty Pooh.
Yes, the Great Mighty Pooh. Yeah,
I liked Conquer, but I could not play it that long. It was like,
oh man, it would get so like stag, like you just get so bored of it so fast.
Yeah.
Like the fucking puns. I mean, they bring up a Clockwork Orange way too often.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I only played through Conquer like 2 missions, not even.
Yeah, I mean, James, we never really got to you. What was your first game experience that you kind of remember?
I was going to say, speaking of repetitive, that was really my first experience. It was Gotta Go Fast, and my first ever game in terms of just playing something was on the Sega Mega Drive with Sonic. And it was really nice actually, because it was along with my dad when he was home and not working so often. And so I got a good bit of bonding time with him there. And that's what really launched me off. I really went from the Sega Mega Drive to the PlayStation 1 then. And you can kind of see the platforming elements from where I went, because I went to like Spyro the Dragon, for example, the Croc series, platformers, and the Fast element. That's where my love of racing games came in, but it wasn't, I mean, it's not necessarily like this big memory that I hold so dear. It was just, me and my dad playing Sonic, just as a father and son should do.
Yeah, I actually have a similar memory from my childhood where my dad used to work at a police station, or at a jail rather, in Indiana, and he would work the night shift, so I would stay up all night and wait until he got home in the morning, and we would play Mario Kart 64 actually.
Lovely.
Oh, Mario Kart 64
Great
is
game.
the best.
Yeah, great game right there.
But
My cousin...
I'm gonna quickly go across you, Damian, because that's a perfect segue. Like, it's the most fucking perfect segue, because now we can talk about our favorite games. And if you can tag in your story leading up to your favorite games, you'll be the most amazing person ever.
Favorite game of all time. Well, who's going first before I just like step in?
Well, I was going to say you
go ahead.
You can say your
go ahead
story.
And finish your story. You go ahead and finish your story, and then
You can
kind
sort
of
of link in there.
segue that in.
That's what I was going to go with. That.
There are I have a list of 100 games that I could tell you, but
Well, let's just stick with like maybe top 5.
Yeah.
or I'll tell the story of the one and just the reason it kind of like sticks to me so well. I think number 1 would have to be Ocarina of Time. I really
Classic.
I'm just that it's got to be Ocarina of Time. I find it weird that I can still play that fucking game today and like enjoy it and play it all the way through. I've never known a game that can bring back like so much replay value that in a game that was made like shit. It was made like 10 years ago, I think. Like there's not been a game that has had that much replay value other than like Resident Evil 4 as my second one. But how I came along to loving Ocarina of Time so much was the fact that it was one of the only real games that I actually played on the Nintendo 64. It was one of the like I had a bunch of shitty titles and then I had like this really good game. But well, I'm gonna go into a more personal level with it. So basically, before like where I am now, I was a foster kid for like 9 years, and foster care was like that was all shit. And before that, I was living with my dad, and my mom was kind of having some drug problems that they're both over now, and I'm both proud of them for that. But that it was like I kind of felt like I didn't have anything but my game system there and just kind of an escape, you know? It was kind of like I didn't have many friends at school, and I don't know, it just felt good to just get away and play this awesome game, go on adventures, and I just feel like personally it has more of an emotional kind of an emotional attachment, if that makes sense.
Well, I'll tell you what, I can actually... My story is nowhere near as deep and as actually well evidenced in terms of why it means so much to you as that. But I mean, certainly my favorite game series had that sort of enlightening effect on my life, I guess, and that'd be Mass Effect for me. I had played all 3 demos, and I had never really bothered to actually pick any of them up. That wasn't until a January sale on the PlayStation Store where they had all 3 games, all the DLC, ready and packed up to go. And I was like, right, you know what? I'm going to sit down, I'm going to play this all the way through, and I'm going to enjoy myself. And around that time, it was pretty much my second year of university or so. And that was it was difficult because I got really burned out through that year, and I didn't really know what I was doing there. I didn't really know what I was going to do in the future. I had no real purpose at all. You know, I was doing my commentary here and there, but I'd lost a little bit of faith in myself, and so I just wanted to escape for a bit, and Mass Effect really was that escape. I mean, my name is James T. Kirk, yes, but it doesn't necessarily have to mean that I am intrinsically linked with space, but over time I really have grown to dream about space. And in Mass Effect, especially given that you choose your own dialogue options, you can create the character to look like yourself. You know, I really got attached and really got into that game. I was making all the choices as I would, including banging a blue alien. But, you know, I think that by the end of it all, I was just feeling so much better about myself because I'd removed myself from the situation. I'd had a time to just relax and enjoy a completely different experience. And actually, throughout that period, I gained some really good gains in real life as well. I met my girlfriend of 1.5 years there, my first girlfriend for 1.5 years. I got some excellent grades in university, a sharp upturn as well. And in general, my family life as well, which had been a little bit tumultuous at that point, was on the up as well. So Mass Effect represents me going from a real stale period in my life to having a lot of belief again.
Yeah.
Zakk, you seem very quiet over there.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, I was actually just listening to you guys' great stories.
Yeah. All right. Now, knock it out of the park, Zakk. You got this.
My favorite game of all time is a little game whose birthday is on December 10th, 1993, Doom. One of the greatest fucking games of all time. I actually remember playing this game. I had this game on a floppy disk, which...
What's a floppy disk?
Had like a whole bunch of unpacked files, like some zip files on a floppy disk that my parents would let me play, unbeknownst to them, like all the graphic, dangerous, satanic imagery of the game. And I actually grew up playing this game, just playing it over and over again. I think that every year I can sit down and probably play all 4 episodes of Ultimate Doom as well as the ports. And everything probably 4 or 5 times a year. I can do it. And I remember being a kid and like the whole Columbine thing went on, and there was a lot of tension about video games and like what was going to happen with them, and if we were ever going to see video games again. And I remember it being a huge victory, like almost being 10 years old, hearing people talk about this Harvard research thing that went on where they concluded that video games had absolutely no adverse effect on young men like myself at the time, which was just like it's something really stupid. It's just something I remember from my childhood being really excited about like one of my favorite games of all time. And not to mention like all the ports, and I got into things like speed running and finding all the exploits and the extra maps and how to really get through the game, and like learning all of the mazes, and then getting into like WODs, like playing like my favorite horror movie of all time. Well, one of my favorite horror movies of all time is Hellraiser. I remember playing a Hellraiser WOD for Doom. It was just one of the coolest fucking things ever. But yeah, Doom is my favorite game. I can't wait to play the new one that comes out. And the guy who edits this, Jeremy, he can attest to this. When we watched E3 last year and they showed like 30 minutes of Doom footage, I literally had the chills and almost cried. I love Doom so much, man. It's my favorite game.
But I think this is actually quite fascinating then, as... was that an appreciation?
Yes, I had to.
Was that a studio audience?
Yes, it was.
Oh,
that's awesome.
Wow. But,
I had to.
I was actually... I find that fascinating then. So we've got a fantasy... We've got a fantasy adventure. We've got a sci-fi epic. And we've got a bloodbath. 3 very different franchises, really. And that leads me on to the next question, which we're going to sort of tackle here, which is what aspects of games do we think are most essential, or can it actually be nailed down to a certain few elements? Is it completely dependent on what sort of gamer you are as to how appealing the game is?
I think that if I may take a little bit of a first answer on this, I think that the absolutely only thing that makes a great game, well, 2 things, are number 1, mechanics that are actually usable by the player, and then number 2, a great fucking story like Mass Effect or like Oblivion or like some of the great games that we have coming out this year, or great games that have come out like Ocarina of Time. I mean, such responsive controls. It was the beginning of Z targeting, but massively, massively fucking great story. Those are the 2 things. That's all you need to know.
Would you disagree with that, Damian, or?
I agree with it. I agree with the story. I agree with the mechanics. There's not much to disagree, but personally, I think this is more opinionated, but I feel that what would make the perfect game for me personally, like for example, I'll use Fallout 4 as an example. The game is great. It's very fun, but it doesn't have a lot of replay value, is what I'm finding with it. One big thing they were going to announce was co-op playability. I thought that was going to be like the greatest thing. I'm not the thing with. I know I'm kind of like sidetracking a little bit, but the thing I'm finding with a lot of the newer games now is that they're all just shooters. They're all first person, third person, all just shooter genres. We're not having like the same creativity we had years ago with games like Ratchet and Clank, Sly Cooper, Ocarina of Time. But I feel like the biggest thing that we could really use right now for a game that would be like, that would just blow everyone's mind is just something new, something that hasn't been done yet. I know it's going to be hard for a developer to come up with that, but it's...
Well, I mean, I think that they try to do that all the time. Like, look at the new release that I think that we might be getting this year, a game called Dreams for the PlayStation 4.
Yes, yeah.
Basically where users can create an environment, and it's kind of going to be in an infinite loop, and that's all the game is you walk through infinite loops of like people who've created things that they've either dreamt about or things that they think or feel. I think that could really redefine a lot about gaming, get back to like what first-person games can really be, kind of like a vision of self-discovery. I think that would be great, especially with VR.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, virtual reality is now going to be opening up a lot of opportunity to bring gaming back to its feet. I'm not saying that all games nowadays are just like shooters, but I'm saying like the good majority of them are coming out It's like it's giving us less. What's the word? I'm trying to think of it.
Uniqueness, individuality.
Individuality. Yeah,
It is, I mean, it's all very homogenic. I mean, if you look at any like decade of video games, like even if you look at like the NES, I mean, you have like a lot of side-scrolling games up to the SNES. It's like a lot of beat 'em up games, and I think that they make kind of what people like. And unfortunately, as much as I have a love for Call of Duty, I think that kind of put us into that position that we're in now, where games kind of try to emulate that experience of gaming.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here. And it's not because I want to either. It's I genuinely hold
You
this.
smug bastard.
I've got a bit of a smile on my face. Can you tell? No, I am going to push the boat out here. And I am going to say that we are at a point in gaming where to be individual and to be unique is A, a near impossible task, and B, an even more impossible task to make into an enjoyable experience. And I feel that the gaming sphere right now is not about whether you emulate something. It's not about whether you create something new. It's about creating a good game. And kind of to reflect your point, Zakk, I don't think the millions of fans return year upon year to Call of Duty for the groundbreaking story elements. I think the majority of Call of Duty fans come back there for the multiplayer elements, and so to them, the story means zilch. It might mean achievements or trophies, and that's it.
It's also with that, like they've built like this kind of perfect, perceived obsolescence and planned obsolescence to where every year you absolutely feel the necessity to spend, $60 to $120 on a game that you basically already have.
and actually, they're literally including a game that you already have this year in Modern Warfare 4 Remastered, which is why, I know this is actually sort of jumping the gun on future topics, but it's why this year more than any, I am so fascinated to see the Battlefield versus Call of Duty sort of struggle in the winter period, because you have Call of Duty, they're trying to push the boat out, but they seem very samey more this year than others, because you've got so many postmodern / future shooters out there in the form of Titanfall as a recent example. And you think, how is this any different apart from being the Call of Duty experience? And then you look at Battlefield 1, and you've got a sort of World War I don't think it's going to be World War One to the letter, but it's World War One-esque. It's completely different to anything that anybody's doing right now. And I think
I think people kind of grew out of that, with Call. Not that people won't like Battlefield now, but I think that with particularly the Call of Duty franchise, I think that not only did fans grow out of that, but also maybe the writers and some things that happened with Infinity Ward, post Advanced Warfare. I mean, Modern Warfare 2, excuse me. But I just want to back up real fast to a point that you made, James, about uniqueness and stuff.
Sure.
But I think there's a lot of great games out there that are very unique. You look at like Ether 1. Ether 1's a great fucking game. The Vanishing of Ethan Carter is one of my favorite games. That recently actually just got ported to the PlayStation. It's a little bit of an older game,
Stanley
but
Parable maybe is another one.
Oh, Stanley Parable's great.
Yeah. I play tons of games on my computer trying to find something to record, and it's very seldom that I find something and I go, oh shit, this is a motherfucking masterpiece. But every once in a while, the greatest game I played last year was the what is this, something Swan? Oh man, I can't remember.
Broken Swan, Unfinished Swan, something like
that.
The
Unfinished Swan, man. The Unfinished Swan was one of those games that made me feel like I was 10 years old. That was a great fucking game, dude. That was a great, awesome game.
I do want to. I do want to say something about the uniqueness, and I wouldn't say it's impossible, because I mean, look at Undertale that recently just came out.
Well, just look at what I just mentioned,
really,
the Unfinished Swan.
Yeah.
I just want to give a shout out to the Unfinished Swan.
Yeah. Shout out to Undertale too. You guys are fucking great. Please make a second game for the love of God.
I think Undertale's not necessarily unique. I think it's very unique in its story, and I think that's sort of the idea. People have these fantasies that you can dream up new genres just like that, and the fact is that is very difficult. But I guess the point which
No, I agree with what you're saying. It's kind of, it's kind of like what we have going on with music right now. It's kind of hard to do something new when so many things have already been done, and there's so many people in the fucking world.
There's loads of base layers to start on. I think it's finding the uniqueness on top of those. Like, for example, with Battlefield 1 this year, I'm gonna lay it down now. This is the KirkyLife's first The Secret Bosses prediction of the year. Battlefield 1 will outsell Call of Duty Infinite Warfare.
I agree with that. I agree with that because
I think it's more they are doing something individual for the time. I mean, you remember back not even 5 years, it must be 10 years ago now, every shooter on the market was a World War II shooter. And then all of a sudden Modern Warfare comes out, and then all of the shooters are Modern Warfare, and then all of a sudden Advanced Warfare comes out, and all of a sudden all of them are postmodern. Now we're seeing the start of a new trend again, and Battlefield this time around has gotten ahead of the trend. And
I just want to make a little note here, though, James, with what you're saying. I do think that you're probably right with that, but I also want to point out too that Infinity Ward has been wanting to do a futuristic Call of Duty game since Modern Warfare. I think since Call of Duty 4 they've been talking about doing it, so they might have a lot of great ideas that we can't even concept right now because of everything that we see, like all the the same boring bullshit that like Call of Duty pumps out every year. Maybe there's going to be something that we don't even know that could be really cool because they've had 10 years, 10 15 years to think about it.
My mind's timer is set and it is ready to be blown. We shall wait and see whether it is blown. Potentially at E3 later when it actually releases. Plenty of interesting debate there for sure, and I imagine that it could go on for ages. But as we're nearing the end of our podcast now, and it's amazing how time has flown by. I hope that you've all enjoyed this second part and getting to know a little bit more about us. We're gonna leave it with this final question, which I think is definitely a question that could be asked every single year, and every single year you'll get a different answer. But let's start with you, Damian. Where do you see gaming in 10 years? Because you certainly seem to have a lot of hope in virtual reality for a start.
Oh, yeah, because for one thing, I do see a lot.
Smell-o-vision plus porn plus virtual reality.
I was literally just going to say.
I know you were going to say that.
It's going to be like it's like the 4D movies at Busch Gardens. But no,
but also with controls, like you can actually slap the ass and stuff.
Oh yeah,
you can already do that with the Vive though. But I think in 10 years, well, that'll be around the time the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox 2 or the Xbox maybe the 720 or whatever the fuck directions they're going now.
Yeah, you have it right about that. It's usually about 10 years, yeah.
Yeah, 10 years. I see a lot of major I feel like we would be in that era where we'd have a lot of new AAA games by then, a lot more, but I think the biggest thing, sorry, I'm just stumbling across, I wasn't ready for this question, but yeah, I think one of the biggest things that they're going to advance in is virtual reality, but then again, I kind of want to bite my tongue on that at the same time, because excuse me, they released I don't know if you guys knew that they released 3D TVs to the public, and those never
a massive failure.
That never caught on. I mean, I had a 3D TV in my bedroom when I was living with my foster mom or whatever, but it just never caught on to people. Remember,
my dad actually bought one. I think we watched Jurassic Park in 3D, and then we've never used it again.
Oh yeah, and I tried to play Black Ops 1 on it. It was the worst. It's an absolute eyesore for gaming.
I know that a lot of games now they look a lot. I know that when it first happened, Killzone actually looked really
Killzone
good
looked
on
amazing in 3D.
But the thing was though, it was made for 3D, and I don't think that they're developing a lot of games for 3D even now. I mean, it's just not
it's dead
something
now, pretty
people
much.
are really interested in. But, Damian, with VR, though, I mean, PlayStation has kind of a budget virtual reality headset, which may lead people to be more interested in VR if it's good.
I'm hoping the biggest one that I want, I always tell people, why the hell would you get this if you could just get the Vive? The Vive is, the one I'm, tripping balls over because I just really fucking want it. It's going to be 800, but this video is not sponsored by Vive by any means, but but the Vive.
If any sponsors are interested in getting involved with the Secret Bosses podcast, be sure to contact Mr. Jeremy Wooten. Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
No, but I think that maybe like the budget, like PSVR, might be able to turn people more onto higher end PCs to be able to run things like the Vive is, I guess, what the point I was trying to make with that.
They are kind of doing something similar to the Vive, but not entirely, like with the whole motion, like where you stand up and like there's a sensor. It's taking like the old Wii aspect, where like I know it's fucking, I'm terrible for even mentioning the Wii at this point, but even though it was an okay console, but
they're using like the new edition of the PS Move. I mean, it could be a lot more. It could be a lot better than like the last versions that we saw with the release of the Kinect and the PS Move. So,
anyone? Okay, just a side topic. Did anyone ever have a PlayStation Eye? That was like the worst fucking thing ever.
I had a PlayStation
for the
PS2.
PS2.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that was the worst.
I don't know. I guess like where games will go in 10 years, I have to say I think that there's going to be a kind of a collapse of bigger developers because I see so many indie games, like games that are coming out like No Man's Sky with like 8 quintillion planets made by like just a small group of people, and games that are turned into AAA games like Amnesia by Frictional and the new release Soma, which looked fucking great. I think that these smaller developers, they don't work as slaves to companies like Blizzard or Infinity Ward or who makes Fallout again? Just as a reminder.
Bethesda.
Yeah, I mean, but Bethesda is such a big conglomerate of like so many subsidiaries. I think that these kind of people, I think that they might kind of fall to the wayside a little bit.
Well, I mean, you just got to look at Psyonix and Rocket League. They actually used PlayStation to gain popularity, not the other way around.
Yeah, I mean, so many things like that have happened. I mean, and I think that those indie titles have been great to a lot of other, mediums and art, like especially like YouTube. I mean, if you look at, the biggest YouTubers like Markiplier or PewDiePie, I mean, they could probably brand their whole career on fucking Amnesia by Frictional Games, and Frictional Games even notes that themselves. So it's like, I think that these indie developers that are making great games like the Unfinished Swan and Rocket League and the Amnesias of the world, I think that they might kind of have an up and up, especially with PC gaming. I mean, it's kind of what people really talk about when I get on Steam and I look at games and stuff. So I think that could be really cool and a really cool kind of thing to see because it happened in the music industry a few years back with like indie labels and kind of bands releasing their own records, and it was kind of like the fall of record labels in general, that with Napster combined, I think that maybe indie developers might be able to do the same thing to these big corporations that fucking gouges out the ass and produce shitty video games that we all want to buy every year.
I agree with you a lot. I think that it's going to become very much like the food market, where you have your trusted brands, the big developers, if you will, but then you have sort of like the more unique, like homegrown shops, the indie developers, where some people will trust them, some people won't. It's up to them, and it'll be a lot more of an equal playing field. And I also think on just the platforms on which you play overall, I think that we're going to see a big change in the landscape. I think for your casual gaming needs, you will own a Nintendo console. You have your Marios, you have your Donkey Kongs. They are the party games.
Casuals. I mean,
they are they are the games. But they are the games that you go to play with your kids or play with your family or play with friends around. They don't induce, apart from Mario Kart, super angry responses. They are the perfect games, right? They are the perfect games to have a fun time around.
What's great about the Wii was like that. That they put like the vintage kind of like gaming market on there where you could buy, like, that was a great idea.
So there's nostalgia elements as well.
Yeah, and then you have like all this time that's passed since PlayStation, and now we finally have 8 PS2 games.
Yeah. But actually, speaking of PlayStation, I think in 10 years they will be the console. If you want console gaming, you will own a PlayStation, and that will be because there will be no Xbox. There will be.
Oh no, I definitely can get on board with that statement. I think that they're too greedy for their own good, and I think that a lot of their users have seen that, and like even their user base fell last year or was it 2 years ago when the next gen consoles came out that they saw a big fall in like their unique users for Xbox Live, and those unique users went to PlayStation and PC.
I'm not even sure that it's going to be that simple, though. I mean, we see some very interesting concepts in the Steam box, for example, coming out and streaming games. I don't think that the Xbox's evolution is going to be that dramatic per se, but I think if you want PC gaming on a budget, that is what the Xbox will be. It'll be an Xbox branded PC with set specs at a reduced price.
I mean, that's kind of what console gaming already is.
It kind of is, but it's not to that extent, though. It is very much tempered.
No, you're right, but I mean, I think that PC is great because you can do whatever you want with it. I mean, I got a tower right here. I can upgrade it and make it one of the best computers out there, on a budget, and it would be fucking great, and it would be better than most consoles that would come out in the next 20 years.
PC Master Race.
PC Master Race.
PC Master Race, but I do prefer console gaming personally, and it's not because I think that one's better than the other. I love using first-person games with a mouse. I hate using a fucking DualShock controller or an Xbox controller for any kind of gamepad. I'd rather use a mouse, but I think that it's for the conveniency of being able to sit on your couch. You don't have to have kind of like the setup, tear down kind of station or a desk where you PC game. You kind of have everything right there, right kind of at your fingertips in a couch. That's why like Nintendo, like old Nintendo products were so great, like even when PC gaming was a thing, even if you look at GameCube was a great fucking system at the time, except for the fact that you couldn't play CDs or DVDs for absolutely no fucking reason because they decided to use micro discs.
But GameCube!
Yeah, but
and
exactly,
it's got a
but
handle.
GameCube is. Yes, exactly. And even if you look at like Xbox was kind of maybe behind a little bit in terms of like graphics and things, but that's absolutely why 2 years later, it was 2 years later they released the 360. They updated the specs and it was great. It held its own, and I think that console gaming is great if you just want to fucking sit on your couch and be a lazy piece of shit, but also be able to eat pizza.
One thing they're really, really they're really starting to drop on is couch co-op. Like that's a thing I grew up with, and I mean I didn't get a lot of friends, but when I did like have friends over, it was always cool to like pop in GoldenEye, Smash Bros, whatever.
Absolutely.
And now that's just like the only game that I can play with my friends in the same room as Call of Duty, and it's like I don't even like Call of Duty enough to play it that much anymore.
No,
it's just.
I mean, me and Jeremy, and our other buddy, we kind of had that relationship still, even into our 20s, where we'd just kind of get together and we'd play Smash.
Yeah. Hey, you
Which is
guys
a
want to
great-
smash?
We'd smash each other's dicks into each other.
Right.
Speaking of which, actually, I think that leads me on to
Speaking
my
of
final.
smash-
Speaking of smashing dicks, that leads me on to my final thought, and it does concern VR. I'm not really convinced that VR
Wait,
will.
James, maybe we should wrap this up here and do like a final prediction for E3 just before we sign off.
Well, we'll do E3 in another episode. I think we might do like an E3 extravaganza. I was going to finish it up just after this point, though. I think that VR does have a sustained future. Not necessarily an exploding future. I'm not convinced about that. But I will leave you guys with this thought. Honey Pop VR.
Oh my god.
Jesus Christ.
And on that
I
note,
just came everywhere.
Jesus Christ.
with orgasms going everywhere, we would like to leave you with the best wishes from all of us. It has been a pleasure, and I hope that you enjoyed listening to what was a very interesting podcast for all of us. Yes, you included, Tim.
Yes.
I would like to thank everyone involved in the creation of this production. Mr. Damian, the Mr. Duck.
Yes, Mr. Duck.
Zakk, the man, the maestro.
Yes, that's me. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Zakk, you spell your name wrong, by the way. Just saying.
Fuck
He
you.
does spell his name
Fuck you.
wrong. I've been James, and it's game over, man. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Yeah, let me stop recording. Good job, guys. I would high five it. What the fuck? My recording is not. Oh, because I have to press stop.